contrary to what I said in the last episode, I was actually able to record this one as well because we had to postpone meeting our friends by about half an hour, which should be enough for at least one more episode. So let's go straight into it too. Not into Fun World. Fun World is going to be the next one again, but into the political compass. Page 4 of 6. Oh, and obviously subscribe if you haven't. I mean, it goes without saying, but I do say it anyways because it doesn't go without saying. Okay, how you see the wider society. Okay, let's find out how I see the wider society. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. That is true. That's such a interesting, because like the political compass is now 23 years old, which is just in the time of 9/11 and where the Patriot Act and things like that, obviously very American focused, did curb civil liberties and is continuing to curb civil liberties. And this is kind of the same thing in Germany as well. The name of counterterrorism is in the name of counterterrorism. There's a lot of stuff that's done that should not be done. This is completely wrong for governments to do. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. I mean, like that is an advantage that they have, I guess, but it's not good though, right? And also, I'm not sure if it's always correct because it really depends on like how the power structure works. If for example the one party is very divided within itself, then it might have similar problems and be similarly slow, or it might, because of like corruption or other internal issues, delay progress significantly. So I think it depends really. Like democracies are not as slow and bad at changes as we're sometimes pretend, I would say. So actually, I mean, I think and I also morally disagree. There's a lot of advantages to democracies outside of this. So I'm just gonna, because of all of these things, I'm gonna strongly disagree. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. That I strongly disagree. I mean, we clearly see that, like, you know, journalists, dissidents have to be incredibly worried, not just wrongdoers. If anything, wrongdoers are often ones that don't have to be worried, and it's more like people who don't do anything wrong but fall foul of certain power structures, or just are caught in the crossfires, that really are the ones that become the victims of the surveillance state. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. I disagree. I don't think the government... I actually went quite far in these before. But this system is pretty good too, you know, so only like the oldest viewers will have some repeat, except for my other explanations and my different answers this time. Yeah, so I'm very much against the death penalty. I don't think the state should have that power. There should always be the option of clemency, and also the option of finding out more info if someone is wrongfully convicted. There's a lot of people that have been wrongfully put to death, not just by like governments that do this out of authoritarian and, like, you know, malicious reasons, but by accident. Yeah, in a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. I don't. Okay, I mean, so this depends how you're kind of seeing this, right? Like, I feel like you sometimes need like leaders that are elected or chosen for certain tasks, but you don't need, like, they're not like above you or below you. Like, you're kind of equals in my ideal society, very obviously liberal society, democratic society that I value. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. I disagree. I think abstract art is art and has something to say. I find, I don't always get much out of it myself, and I can understand like people making fun of it. Like, if there's just like, I don't know, a red square and it's like, well, who came up? Well, I could have just drawn this, things like that. But ultimately, it can be art and is art. Yeah, it is art. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. I strongly disagree. I think rehabilitation is the most important thing. Punishment is kind of very much secondary. I don't. It's a kind of like, no crying over spilled milk. But a little bit of punishment, I guess, can be important, especially like if it kind of, without punishment, perhaps like everyone, like there would be more people who say you don't. Well, without punishment, I could do this and I could benefit from it, but ultimately, it's like really more about this aspect and rehabilitation and protecting society from repeat offenses, things like that are much more important. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. I mean, we find that out at the end, but I think it's never a waste of time to try. You should always try. And perhaps at some point, like, they've done crime all their life, and then they die, and you say, like, well, I guess in retrospect, maybe it was a slight waste, but it still was probably not a waste because, just kind of the practice of it is good for society. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. I disagree. I think writers and artists are very important. Business people and manufacturers are also very important. I don't see that one is necessarily much more important than the other. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. I strongly disagree. I think mothers are people and should have the freedom to take care of things. Mothers and fathers obviously have some sort of responsibility to their children and need to take care of that. But that's not just for mothers, as this question frames. And it's also a general duty that I think everyone has to children. Like we need to take care of them as a society. Homemakers, I mean, it kind of goes beyond this in a way. It's very gendered language, obviously, so I disagree with the way it's stated there. Almost all politicians promise economic growth, but we should heed the warnings of climate science that growth is detrimental to our fair efforts to curb global warming. I mean, yeah, I agree. We do need to heed these warnings. We need to figure out what kind of growth we can do, what kind of growth we cannot do, without endangering ourselves and our ways of life. So yeah, it depends. We also need to see what we view as economic growth at some point. So it's a complicated topic, but this statement I agree with. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. I mean, that depends on what the establishment espouses, I would say, right? Like if it's a really awful establishment, you should never ever make peace with it. I would say perhaps being younger, it's more common to be rebellious and to strain against certain restrictions that perhaps later on you might find to be beneficial after all. But I think it's not a general thing, and I think a lot of older people should be more rebellious, I guess. So yeah, I disagree. Oh, we're good in time. I think we can do at least this page, maybe even the last page. Might be good to do the last page too. If you got through that, okay, you'll find these propositions on religion a breeze. Astrology accurately explains many things. No, in my opinion, it explains nothing. That's kind of like, I have a very Western, no, not Western. That's not right. I was going to say Western medicine, but that's has relatively little to do with astrology. And I'm also like, I do think Eastern medicine has also value, obviously. But I think I have more like the I guess, a physics-based approach to this, where I don't think like astrology, what it says, can have a real effect, because like why would it? And that's I guess my view of astrology. Can be fun, I guess, if you don't believe too much in it. It's not necessarily terrible. Some people go way too far in it and like kind of become delusional. That's pretty bad. You cannot be moral without being religious. Strongly disagree. I do think atheists can be and often are incredibly moral. Morality doesn't necessarily come from religious values, although it can. And religious people can also be very moral, but they can also be very immoral. So I just disagree with the statement. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the generally disadvantaged. Strongly disagree. It's clearly not better at it. It's actually kind of very inaccurate. It helps some people. It doesn't help other people. It's not a great way. It's good to want to give charity. It's good to give charity, but social security is a much more universal and much more effective way of helping genuinely disadvantaged people. Some people are naturally unlucky. Strongly disagree. Well, okay, so I'm going to lay out something else. I'm still going to say strongly disagree because of how I read the question first, but I kind of think like that's kind of like astrology, right? There's luck and there's no luck, unluck in the universe. I don't think this way. I'm a determinist, so I think like everything is kind of determined by natural laws. And we're just more experiencing things like a movie. That's a bit of a can of worms. But yeah, some people are naturally unlucky. So okay, that's what I was going to say. If you're going to then either think of it in determinism, or you think of it in the kind of ways like, well, some people are born in a society where they can have no advantages, where they're like really poor, where they're going to die young, or they're determined to die young, whatever way you want to look at this. Or say you're born with a massive disability that's very, very detrimental to you, and you hate it and stuff, right? Like if you have a disability you live with, or you can have a good life, but that's a different situation. But if it's really detrimental to you, then you could say this is unlucky, right? Because you were dealt a bad hand. But that's not how I first interpreted it. I interpreted it more as like a kind of woo-woo magical religious thing. Sorry, I am an atheist, so I think most religious thing is also woo-woo religious. Woo-woo religious, but you get what I mean. I'm kind of going left and right there. Maybe I should talk about why religion is valuable sometime, which I do think is in some aspects. But yeah, so this is how I interpreted the question. So I'm going to stick with strongly disagree. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. I also strongly disagree with this. Like I said, I'm an atheist. I don't think religious values should be instilled in children. Did I do all of the questions last time around? Like I feel like I really remember this now. But that's not bad then. Like we're almost a year in, so good. Going through it again is always a good idea. Also, I have this new setup. Look, you can actually see the questions. It's really, really cool. I have this background. How do you like the background, by the way? Comment on that. There's my little ghost. Is it me? Is it just a different ghost that also lives in purple Tokyo? We don't know, but it's flying in the background the whole time. Yeah. So no, don't want religious values, but I do think religious education is important in the sense that you should learn about religions, what they believe, why they believe it, how they developed in history and things like that. I get massive deja vu. I think I did all of these questions before, but it's a fun little thing to do. And page 6 of 6. Finally, a look at sex. Oh boy. I think I'll actually get through it too, so that's pretty good. Sex outside marriage is usually moral. Strongly disagree. Have sex with whoever you want to have sex with, and they want to have sex with you. I'm not going for a J.K. Rowling thing here. It's like have sex with anyone who'll have you, which has a different vibe. I'm just consent is important, but have sex. be fruitful and multiply, coming back to the religious aspect. The same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoptions. I strongly agree. I think they should be able to adopt, and it's good for them, it's good for the children. It's a win-win-win all around. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Yes, I agree. I do have issues with pornography, how it is, because of lack of consent, because of what the content, because of children being easily exposed to it, how available it is. There are things that you can regulate, but as a general thing, I don't think pornography should be outlawed completely. Sorry, bit of a coughing fit. Should drink a little bit of my tea. Peach tea, very delicious. I think decaffeinated, I hope, or I might not sleep tonight. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state, as long as, well, within some certain reason, but generally I agree. Like, all sorts of, like, sodomy or something like that. I just throw that one out. That can be in the next cut of my best and worst quotes. But yeah, things like that, definitely, yeah, that's between people, all sorts of like sex acts that you want to, BDSM, things like that. Let me see, physical harm. I mean, feel maybe if it's to a specific level, you might want that to not exist. It's difficult, like, or like, that cannibalism thing that was there in Germany, the cannibal of Rothenburg, that's how you pronounce it in Germany. It's difficult, that is probably should be illegal. But I mean, in broad terms, yes, right? No one can feel naturally homosexual. I think that doesn't seem to be right. Like, there seem to be people who are naturally homosexual. I feel my attractions to people also naturally, I would say, obviously influenced by society in some ways, and in some ways slightly changeable, but not to the degree where like gay conversion therapy or straight conversion therapy would make any sense. So I do think people definitely feel natural this way and are pretty naturally this way. But this is actually something I think is quite affected by biology. I'm often more on the socialized side of things, but there I think this biology plays a big part. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I mean, like, if we just, as a social critique, I would say maybe it's gone a little bit too far on the internet. I think it's good to be pro-sex positive, as you call it, on the whole. With some of these things, like, suggesting people do OnlyFans, kind of like recruiting people into doing that's gone a bit too far, and is probably actually detrimental to the people doing it. In other parts, it's not gone too far at all, right? Okay, so maybe this is more how we should think about it. There's obviously a lot of very conservative areas that you can't talk about sex, you can't live your life how you want, and that's much more important. So you see, it's interesting. Like, initially I was going to say I agree because I immediately jumped to Twitter, but then I realized, well, actually that's not like the real world, right? Like, if you talk about like Saudi Arabia or whatever, or the Bible Belt or things like that, it's actually it's not gone too far. So in some certain small subsets, it's gone too far, but overall, probably it hasn't gone too far. And if it is within certain limits, it can't go too far. So I'm going to say disagree, actually. Now, let's see where I stand. I'm just going to predict it. It's going to be like always. I'm going to be quite libertarian. I'm going to be pretty left. They say that it has a bit of a slant towards that anyways. Most people get somewhat to that direction, even though I used to really get right-wing, kind of interesting. So let's quickly look through this about the political conference. So we have left to right, we have authoritarian, libertarian. I'm going to say I'm going to be here. Yeah, you see this that's where I'm going to be when I go down, because I'm economically I'm quite left. I think we need to regulate strongly, and we need to give people more money that are poor. And my social scale is very libertarian. I think people should be free as possible. I used to be like somewhere here, which is very uncommon, or used to be quite uncommon. And over the years, I've kind of go here. I can actually kind of see that I have like my oldest ones still from here. Never been an authoritarian. I'm always a bit of a libertine. Libertine. So you can read about this yourself in List of Economic Freedom. This kind of, I mean, you can argue about these things. There's actually no countries that are where I am, I guess. Well, maybe I won't be there. We'll see. My political compass. All right, here we go. I think I'm basically right. Right here. Left 7.25. Oh, 7.25. I'm going to screenshot this. I use a Mac, so I can screenshot it like this. I'm going to do that. So I remember it. Do I need a compass certificate? I don't think so. Utah. All right. Well, maybe I should donate to this sometimes. I might do that. Yeah, let me know what your results were, where you disagreed, where you agreed. I should have said this in every single video. It would have gotten more engagement. Well, the regrets we have. Either way, I had fun. I hope you had fun too. And I will see you in the next one, probably back to Fun World. So stay spoopy, friends.